Hmm.
No,
I
We
forgot
did
to
it
ask Frank.
again.
I was like, do we have the intro video before we come in? So we're already off to
Uh,
a great start here. So yeah, as y'all can see, we're down a couple of members. Damon's dealing with some family issues, so our thoughts and prayers are with him tonight. Chris is still out at where was it again, Dylan?
the NARC convention.
Yeah, I thought he was doing on-site reporting. What?
well,
Uh,
oh, he did. He did send in a video, didn't he? None of
yeah,
us
yeah,
have that ready, do we?
yeah. So what news? So we'll just jump right into some news. What news lately got you fired up, Dylan? What's
Mm.
I mean, dude, there's been like 2 or 3. We talking about the Big Ten championship moving to Vegas? How
Yes.
ridiculous that would be. Moving to Vegas, it's the Big Ten. It's the Midwest. It's supposed to be in Indianapolis, not Vegas. How many? Got me all fired up. How many people, like, how many Purdue people? I'm sure there's actually maybe a good amount of Purdue alums that live out there, but not saying Purdue makes the Big Ten championship every year, but like, how many? I don't know. I just don't see a lot of fan bases traveling that far to Vegas for the Big Ten championship. I don't know. Maybe it's just me,
You
but
wouldn't go to Vegas if Purdue went to
I mean,
the
I would,
championship game?
right? But but like, I'm an idiot, right? But I don't know. No, I think
There's
it's
enough
stupid.
degenerates, I think, that would go to that game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Indianapolis is the perfect spot. It's like the middle ground. I mean, I guess now that we have
Yeah, one
UCLA, yeah, now it's not anymore, I guess. But
yeah,
um,
1/4 of our conference is now on the West
yeah,
Coast.
but they're the new guys. Make them travel. Make them do the hike. Make
I
them
mean,
do the work.
I agree. I think, and they said it was gonna be a rotational basis, and I agree with that. Like, I feel like you gotta have if 1/4 of the conference is out there, then 1 out of every 4 years, you probably gotta have the conference championship game
That
out there.
okay, that
So,
I could live with.
as long
But
as the other 3 are like Chicago, Indy, Detroit, I'm good with that.
if they go back and forth, that's fine. But if it's like permanent Vegas, I'd be now that Aiden O'Connell owns, Allegiant Stadium, but
That's
that's
true.
great too. But I
That's
mean,
true.
now that it's owned by a Boilermaker, maybe it's not that bad the more I think about it. But
Well, I think attendance is going to be strictly dependent on the team's situation. Like if you're an Ohio State fan and the Big Ten championship is what sits between you and the playoffs, like you're gonna go to that game.
yeah.
But if it's, I don't want to say that okay, I'm gonna say it. So like Purdue last season, I'm not sure that Purdue gets a huge turnout in Vegas.
I
Like
wouldn't have gone.
no one gave Purdue a snowball's chance to win that game. Realistically, Dylan, you went. I strongly considered going. Ended up not going, not because of the geographic distance, just because I honestly wasn't too keen on us winning. I just didn't think that was going to
Oh, I
happen. So
knew
I
we
think
weren't going to win, but I at least had to see it once in my lifetime.
And I
It's just
mean, and when I sit and think about the fact that I've gone to probably 100 Purdue football games in my life, I don't. It's like I don't need to prove anything to anybody. So I'm definitely not going out to Vegas for that game. But I just think it depends on the teams playing and the
but they
fan
gave
base,
out
and
really cool towels.
those are some pretty sweet
And then
towels.
I had a lady a few rows behind me that was just grabbing them seat by seat, just like, yeah, okay. And I was like, "Ugh."
Well, let's also not forget that the big money around this decision to expand the conference was around TV rights and
Oh
TV
yeah.
deals. So I don't think they're really too worried about ticket sales. I think they're more worried about how many people are tuning in to watch the game. So I don't think if they don't sell out a Vegas Big Ten championship game, they're going to be too worried about it. They might not go there very often again, but I don't think they're going to stress over it.
I mean, an Allegiant Stadium's awesome. I saw it for the first time when I was in Vegas last year, and it looks like something out of Star Wars. Like they have a huge video board that you can see from the highway, and I don't know how many wrecks it's caused so far, but it's got to be at least a couple. Because I mean, it's like it's off to your left if you're coming into town. I think I've only been there once. You can't walk there from the strip. I tried. I got lost. Maybe you can, and I'm too stupid to figure out how. But no, Allegiant Stadium itself is rad. Like it's awesome. And then we had a video from Chris, of course, who's out there right now, but we forgot to upload it. So that's on us. But thanks, Chris, for your work that isn't
Well,
being showed.
do either of you remember when the Big Ten basketball tournament was in? I think it was Maryland, right?
New York City, Madison Square
New York
Garden, wasn't
City?
it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I remember thinking like it's basically a home game for Maryland, which, when it's in Indianapolis, it's kind of a home game for Purdue. But if I recall, almost no one went. Um,
Yeah.
because you think about Indianapolis, it's a 6-hour drive from Iowa City. It's 4-ish hours from Michigan State. It's about 5 from Ann Arbor. It's just 3 hours from Ohio State. Like, it's just a good central location. When they had it on the East Coast, no one went. I thought it was the funniest thing. I've been to the Big Ten tournament several times, and they always have, like, right in the middle near the stadium, street signs that point in the direction of every school and the distance. When they had it in New York City, they showed that on TV, and it was like every school west. Like, they were all pointing the same direction. It's like, I'm
That
not sure whose idea that was, but that wasn't really a smart one.
I'm a big Lucas Oil Stadium fan. I love that place. It's so nice. And granted, I come from closer to Cincinnati where we have Paul Brown Stadium or Paycor Stadium, whatever it's called now. And the outside, from what you guys see on TV, looks crazy cool. The inside looks like a prison. So, I mean, it doesn't take much for me to really like, oh, this stadium's nice, because I'm used to Paul Brown Stadium. That's kind of a, I don't want to call it dump.
I fundamentally disagree with playing football inside. I don't know why. I will never be
Of
okay
course
with
you
it.
would. You know
Yeah.
why? Because you're a Steelers fan. That's why.
Okay, fine.
Boo.
I am going to see the Steelers play in Lucas Oil Stadium in December, and I guarantee in December, Indianapolis, I will be very happy that I'm inside.
Yeah,
I can
good.
fundamentally disagree with it, but also enjoy it at the same
Clip
time.
this, and then we'll bring that back when that game comes around.
I'm
Yeah.
very interested. That's interesting take from Frank, especially when I feel like you're kind of a purist, like you're a sports purist. Like you would prefer the most neutral environment possible, so that the only factors in who wins the game is the performance of the athletes. So I'm surprised that you are for outdoor football, because that's the biggest reason I'm against outdoor football in bad weather situations, because I feel like then you're taking away from who the best team really is in a neutral environment.
Are you
You know,
saying
like
Bill
that
Roof
was
over Ross Aid?
and I'm a Cowboys fan, so of course that's kind of my take, because
Boo.
what's one of the biggest games in Cowboys history is the Ice Bowl, right up at Green Bay, when all of a sudden, in one of the coolest environments ever, the I guess the mechanism that kept the field warm failed, so it turned into this big slop heap, and the Cowboys were winning and doing great, and then all of a sudden it turns into this slop heap, mud bowl, like, big pile of a football game, and all of a sudden now we lose. And so it's like, okay, so you basically shifted the game in the direction to a team that best deals with the elements instead of who's actually best at the sport.
So what you're saying is we need to build a roof over Ross Aid.
I mean, that was in one of the surveys. I feel like one of the recent surveys where they asked fans what they'd like to see in Ross Aid. So,
hey, will the grass be ready? I think it will be. It's looking good.
It's looking really good. I saw
looking-
that picture today. It looked like it had been doctored, like maybe some Instagram filters had been added to it. But the grass looked very green, and the sky looked very, very vibrant.
They
but
said
yeah,
it took 33 semi loads to
I
bring that
bet.
field in.
Yeah,
33
that's a lot of
semis.
grass. Yeah.
a little agricultural information for everybody. So,
Ooh.
sod takes between 10 and 14 days to seed, or to take root. I'm sorry, not to seed, to take root. And we're about 18 days, 17 days away from the opener. So I think we'll be good, because I would lean towards our agricultural department getting closer to that 10 number instead of the 14. And then we're talking about it being ready a week before the game even's played. So
That segment was so Midwest. I loved it.
I envision, and I don't know why I envision this, and this definitely is not going to happen at all. But I just picture the guys doing like the high knees, choppy feet, like pregame warm up, and just like the side, like it's like a rug out from underneath them, just like slides,
Dude,
bunches up. Oh,
back in
man.
the day, I interned for an arena football team. It was pretty messed up. It wasn't like professional. It was, but it wasn't. And somehow the year before, I wasn't with the team, but they had like one full carpeted turf in this arena called Hara Arena in Troutwood, Ohio. Rest in peace. A tornado hit it, and then they finally tore it down. Anyway, the year I worked for the team, one of my first jobs as an unpaid intern was duct taping like squares of turf together so these guys could like play football in this arena, and guys would like rip up the turf and duct tape would go everywhere, and it was that turf and like a sheet of like, I think it was cork, and then ice from the hockey team that played there. So God knows how many concussions happened during these things. It was so unprofessional, but that reminds me of duct taping small slices of turf together with green duct tape, and it looked hilarious.
That sounds extremely dangerous.
Wasn't there a Big Ten championship game a few years back that had
Ohio
they had to
State,
stop the game for like 15 minutes to fix the big fold?
That guy went to Purdue.
He did. He went to Purdue, and the
He's a
entire
Purdue-
stadium erupted in applause as he
Yeah.
fixed the end zone. It was amazing. Yeah.
He
Yeah,
made
it
us
was like
proud.
everyone was clapping for him, like, "Come on, man, you got it." Like,
And
yeah,
he
it
To
was
hear
was
just
Gus
stuffing
Johnson
those
break that
pellets.
down was awesome. Yeah.
He was, you could tell, dude, that had to be so straight. I don't, maybe he didn't know. Maybe he was hoping they went to commercial break, but they have a full on camera. Probably, I don't know, millions of people watch the Big Ten
Oh, yeah,
championship. I don't know.
millions, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he's just stuffing this thing. But yeah, those rubber pellets that they put in the turf, the Colts, at least the last time I was at Lucas Oil during a Colts game, sell little bottles of those pellets for like $20 in the gift shop.
Yeah.
Because of course they do.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned this earlier before we went live, Russ, but a former Purdue player made it kind of a splash this week in the NFL. Should we talk about that for a minute?
Kind of a big deal.
Sure. I was going to work it in on one of these games, but we can do it now. So Aiden O'Connell had probably the best, if maybe the second best, rookie debut in the preseason. Granted it's preseason, and some of these guys like Stroud and Young only played like one series, so they had like 3 pass attempts or whatever. But AOC played a pretty good chunk of that game, ended up going 15 of 18 for I think 141 yards and a touchdown. And his 3 incompletions, 2 of them were actually drops. So his adjusted completion percentage was 94.4%. So he got a lot of praise, not just from Purdue-based accounts on X or elsewhere in social media, but the Raiders were giving him a lot of love. Josh McDaniels has been talking about big time all preseason, even during training camp. And then there's a lot of national sites too that they're breaking down all these rookie QB performances, and they're bringing up O'Connell as well. So there's a lot of hype around him possibly being a guy that could start 5-6 games maybe in halfway through the season this year.
Well, and
So,
Jimmy G's never really played a full healthy season either.
exactly.
So the chances of him, the chances of him seeing the field are pretty high. And for anyone who doesn't know, adjusted completion percentage is completion percentage adjusted for wide receiver drops. So if you think about the quarterback dropping back and he hits the receiver in his hands, and the receiver drops the ball, the quarterback still gets credit as being a completed pass. So that means 92% of his passes were on target, and the ones that weren't caught were the result of the receiver and not the pass, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Absolutely. So, so you guys want to get into some of these games, some of these matchups?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, we upped it to 3 last week since we missed a week, but I think we have just 2 games left after this week. Well, 4 games because of the Big Ten championship game and the bowl game, but we can't really break down those opponents yet. So,
Not
the
yet.
next opponent we had to break down was Nebraska. So at this point, we're 7 games into the season. Our last game, which there's another mini announcement as well. So our last game would have been Ohio State on the 14th, which was announced will be at noon. Unfortunately,
Boo. God.
it'll be airing on Fox. So that kind of hurts our chances. We don't get the night Ross Aid game against Ohio State.
No, it also means I got to
Um,
leave at like 6 a.m.
Yeah. We gotta have a little dedication as a Prue fan there. I'm so sorry for you.
Staying the night at Chris's house. That's it. He
There you
doesn't
go.
know yet, but I am.
Maybe by then we'll have bought the Pod West Lafayette house that we
Yeah,
can
guys, if you start listening more, we can afford to buy a house on like Northwestern or somewhere close.
absolutely.
And that way, you guys don't have to worry about us making these trips from Louisville and Dayton and all these different places.
Yep. So the next game, so we play the Ohio State game on the 14th. We have a week off, and then we get back to action on the 28th of October. Road game at Lincoln, Nebraska. The team site has actually shown, I guess, maybe there's some certain scheduling rules or conflicts, and so we kind of know that it's either going to be a noon, 3:30 p.m. or 4 p.m. kickoff at Lincoln on the 28th. So again, it's following our bye week. Nebraska last year finished 4-8, 3-6 in conference, 6th in the West. Purdue won a 43-37 shootout at Ross Aid last year. That was Maccabee's best game of the season. 178 yards and a touchdown. Charlie Jones and TJ Sheffield both had a pair of touchdown catches. O'Connell was 35 of 54 for 391 yards and 4 touchdowns. So kind of just an offensive shootout. This is one of those things I've actually been warning some of the people down here, Frank, in our area. that are Louisville fans that they're all pumped about how talented defense is and how he brought his defensive staff down there. And I remind them that we didn't play a lot of defense, that we had a lot of different defensive coordinators. And there was a lot of shootouts. There's a lot of games that if we had just closed them out with a defensive stop, we would have, Brown would have had even better record at Purdue. But yeah, so that was last year's game. As far as this year's Nebraska team, the biggest addition is not even a player. It's Matt Rule, their new head coach. Trivia question for you all: do you guys know his alma mater?
Alma
Ooh,
mater.
I feel like it's got to be in the Midwest.
No, it's well, maybe it's a Big Ten school.
He looks like. See, I would have
Oh, I
guessed.
know.
I would have guessed he would have gone to like some like small Midwest MAC school, like Western Michigan or Toledo.
Frank, you said you
No.
know.
I do know. I'm gonna let Dylan guess though.
No,
It is
I
a
haven't.
big. It's a Big Ten school.
It's a
in
Big Ten
conference, yeah.
school. Matt Rule.
So that's like half of all
Right.
college
Let's
football.
go,
Traditional
now.
Big Ten school. Well,
yeah,
traditional.
yeah.
As of the
Traditional Big Ten
90s.
school. As of okay, that's making it even easier, Russ.
you'd think.
Wisconsin.
Penn State.
Penn State.
Oh,
so-
the shit.
Yeah, so he played linebacker at
You
Penn
gave
State.
that to me, and I still got it wrong.
As far as his head coaching record, he started his first head coaching job was at Temple. He went 28-23 in 4 seasons there before
Well-
getting the Baylor job. What's up?
Oh, I just want to. I think it's interesting to point out that like he inherited a really bad team. His first season at Temple, they were 2-10, and then by the time he was done, they were a 10-3 team. They had a 10-4 and 10-3 back-to-back seasons in 2015, 2016. So he did a really good job of turning that program around.
Yep, I was getting there. I was going to
Oh,
tie that
sorry.
in.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. So I did actually have in parentheses he was 2-10 in his first year, but then his last 2 seasons had I think 2 back-to-back double-digit win seasons. But then he got the Baylor job. Was there for 3 years. His overall record was just 19-20. But there he went 1-11 his first year, and then they turned it around and finished second in the Big 12 his last year there. I think won 10 or 11 games. And then he left for the NFL. Tried his hand in the pros. Was the Carolina Panthers head coach and was fired last year after starting 1-4 in what was his 3rd season as head coach there. Went just 5-11 and 5-12 in his first 2 seasons there. So the reason I kind of bring that up, and you kind of alluded to that, Frank, was he's not exactly inheriting a full cabinet here at Nebraska either. So like you said, ranking him as the 10th head coach in the Big Ten is hard to justify. Because if you're saying he's a good coach because he can turn a program around, then he should be much higher than 10. But if you're basing it off of what his results might actually be this year, I don't see them making a bowl game this year. I don't see them, they've got a lot of new pieces. He doesn't exactly have a recruiting class that he's brought in. He's going to have to turn that around, and he has a track record of kind of tearing it down to the nubs his first year and then building the program. So
Well,
I don't get the hype.
So this is and you're right that there is a lot of hype around this Nebraska program, mostly from Nebraska fans, or like they're saying they should be ranked and whatnot.
What? That's shocking.
Well,
They-
so there's actually our big banter poll that came out. They received 3 votes.
Mhm.
It was some ghost vote. I think it was like maybe a night drop ballot or something, because I looked through all the other ballots that were submitted by all the other podcasts and nobody voted Nebraska. So, but somehow they showed up on the poll. I don't know. But
Well, that's interesting. But looking at what they did in the transfer portal, they brought in a 4-star tackle from Georgia, 4-star tight end from Georgia, 4-star defensive end from Georgia. I mean, just those 3 alone are going to have immediate impact. They brought in Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech, likely the starting quarterback. He's a guy who's we can get into the numbers if we want. He's not a great passer. He's more of a use his feet type of guy. I think his like NFL passer rating hasn't been above like 75 in any of his 3 seasons. He's played a lot of football though. They bring in a 4-star cornerback from Florida. So I mean they've done a lot. They bring in a 4-star linebacker from Florida. They've done a lot in the transfer portal. I don't know. I don't know. There's like seemingly every college football team is just a big pile of I don't know. There's so many guys that have left, so many guys that have come in. They're under a brand new coach. We don't know what their system is going to look like. And honestly, I just think Matt Rule is kind of a weirdo. I don't know. He's just a weird dude. No offense to the Nebraska people. he's just kind of a weird guy, you know?
No offense to the Nebraska people. Him and PJ Fleck are like right there at weirdness. Hell, Harbaugh's in there too. You talk about weird coaches, and he's now in that level of
No,
weirdness.
Jim Harbaugh's weird. Matt Rule is weird. PJ Fleck is borderline scary.
Like
Not in like I'm intimidated by you way, but like
he's not just
you
scary, he's elite scary.
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah, like
yeah
drink the Kool-Aid, join the cult scary. Yeah.
Like Scientology scary. Like
yes yeah
it's
yeah.
really
It's just
weird.
like that guy is so weird that I want to just keep my distance from him and
If you wear
possibly
a shirt
move.
and
He's my
tie
neighbor.
under a quarter zip, buddy, let me figure it out. What are we doing? Gosh.
So there's just a lot of unknowns about this Nebraska program. But you're right. Matt Rule does have a track record of not doing really well in his first season. Under the as a head coach. Will that continue? I don't know. But and I mean even the faces of the program have changed. Like I said, they brought in what did I say his name was. So Casey Thompson left, went to Florida Atlantic, and they brought in Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech.
Mhm.
So he was the first true freshman to start at Georgia Tech since 2003. So he did, which Russ, you're nodding as if you knew that, and I do believe that you knew that. But like he only played 7 games last year. I think he had a foot injury that kind of cost him the season.
Yeah,
Um,
he has that's his big issue. That's kind of what I put there too is he hasn't stayed healthy too. Like, yeah, he's not a dominant passer of the ball. He's more of a dual threat guy, but what goes with that dual threat ability is getting hurt because you're going to take
mhm.
more hits. You're going to be a little riskier as a passer, and put your body out there a little bit more. So yeah, he's got to stay healthy for them to be good this year.
And so in the 7 games that he played last year, at Georgia Tech, he had 405 rushing yards, and only 137 of those 405 yards were scramble yards. So he is a guy who's shown that he can scramble and make plays, but the majority of his rushing came from design rushes. So I think he's a guy who maybe, and again, not to offend any Nebraska people, yeah, he maybe struggles as a pocket passer, so he uses his feet to kind of open up the passing game a little bit. I'll just be really curious to see how everything fits together. They had a really competent running back last year in Anthony Grant. How did the two of them kind of coexist? Casey Thompson was a guy who used his feet, maybe not as much, but it just just we could say that about every team we're going to play. There's just a lot of questions to be
Yeah.
answered.
Another big loss for them on the offensive side was Trey Palmer.
Hmm.
He's pretty much the only reason it was a ball game last year with us. If it wasn't for him, we probably double them up on the scoreboard. But for whatever reason, we just decided to not guard him even after big play. Just continue to let him tear us up.
Yeah, and that's why when uh, Louisville fans are extremely happy about getting Ron English, was like you said, go watch that game.
Yep.
Dylan, I think that was the first time we had you on our podcast before you became a member. You were talking about that game. You
Oh
were
yeah.
talking about how the person you were with was like, oh, Purdue's up 17 in the third quarter, like the game's over, and you're like, oh, you
No,
don't
it's
know,
not.
yeah,
You ain't seen nothing.
yeah.
It is not over. It's actually all don't yeah. That way if you've been around Purdue sports enough, no matter how big the lead, no matter how much time is left on the clock, you don't celebrate until the clock hits zeros. I mean, you can't celebrate before that.
Yep. Yep. So some of the other returners that Nebraska has, Marcus Washington was their second leading receiver last year, so he's likely going to be their number one or at least one of their bigger contributors in the passing game. Had 31 catches for 471 yards and a touchdown last year. Again, they relied heavily on Trey Palmer, and it was just a big gap after that. Gabe Irvin, he's a redshirt sophomore, is probably the projected starting running back, but he also just had 94 yards on 20 carries for the season. So again, they were pretty heavily reliant on their RB1 last year. And then their defensively, Luke Reimer, he's a fifth year senior linebacker. He's their biggest returning producer, at least. I don't know much about his playmaking abilities, but he does have 242 career tackles. 195 of them came in the last 2 seasons combined. So he's obviously played a bigger role for them the last couple of years. Um, but that's really all I had on them. What do you guys think about the game? What's your confidence level?
I think at Nebraska, new head coach, new system. this is almost it's such a hard question to answer, and I feel like I could answer it a lot more accurately after like week 2. But at this point, with our new defense and there are lots of changes on offense, I'm going to predict a Purdue. It's going to be a close game. Purdue 3-point win.
Boilers by a billion. You know how I
There we
roll.
go. There we go.
No preparation, no
Dylan
nothing.
Boilers by a billion Coons.
Boilers by a billion every time. I don't care
We're
who
gonna
we're
get you a
playing.
shirt made.
Alabama,
Yeah,
Boilers by a billion.
there you go. Yeah, I like that, Frank. I kind of feel the same way. It's going to be a game where we're probably favored by 5 points, 3 points, but it's still a Big Ten road game, and not just Big Ten road game, but Lincoln is a tough place to play. So yeah, I can see us kind of eking a game out here. We'd have to definitely earn it, kind of regardless of where both teams are, probably. So yeah, I feel the same way.
Interesting take there. So Purdue wins it in the trenches. Yeah, that's assuming that's what he means by up front.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, that's yeah. I'm looking at you brought up Luke Reimer. I had to look at some of his numbers. He had a great season last year and a really versatile guy. So he rushed a lot, dropped into coverage a lot. Um, it's scary to think about him coming back for his 5th year. That's
Hey, my guy CJ Poppin is in the comments. Oh, I got Poppin's Pub sticker right there. Look at that. You can't ever really see it because it's always in back of me. But shout out to CJ Poppin.
There you
Well,
go.
and while we're shouting out, I think it's a good time to talk about our sponsor, Cincy Blitz Boards. Dylan, I don't know you're the recipient now or the proud owner of a Cincy Blitz board.
Yeah, I know. I need to hang it up behind me, and I haven't done that yet.
Yeah,
That's on me.
Yeah,
Slacker.
but yeah, fantastic game. You can bring it to tailgates. You can use it family cookouts. You can set it on your kitchen table if you want to get crazy or wild with it. Yeah, it's a really fun game. We're super stoked to be playing it at our tailgates at our trip to Virginia Tech this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Fantastic people to work with.
That board's going to see a lot of games this year.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't get too rowdy or competitive.
Oh, no, it will. Yeah. No, we're going to kill each other. Probably going to beat each other up, I doubt it.
If we're lucky.
There he is. There's CJ Poppin's Pub, the legend himself. I have his koozie somewhere. I got to start using that. Great guy. Hockey goalie extraordinaire. The guy's like better than Jonathan Quick, or trying to name other hockey goalies. Oh, look who showed up. Look at that.
Oh,
wow.
Hey.
With the very nice compliments, Damon. Thank you so much. He's probably not watching now. I doubt he is.
For those of you listening who aren't able to visually see, our host who normally is hosting this for us just called us losers in the chat. So yeah.
Hey, the Ohio.
So you're the leader of losers then, Damon. How's that make you feel?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Ooh.
So we're feeling like basically a 50-50 game. Purdue kind of ekes out a win on the road. Another bold prediction: Jack Ansel has the longest punt of his career up through that point. I'm going to predict that. Just my random prediction. But who do we have after that, Russ?
So then we stay on the road. We go to the Big House, Ann Arbor, Michigan, November 4th for the rematch of the Big Ten championship game last year. So Michigan, obviously very hyped this year. Finished 13-1 last year, 9-0 in the Big Ten, first in the East, and as I mentioned, knocked us off in the Big Ten championship game. The final score was 43-23, but it's not really indicative of how close that game really was. We got within, halftime was 14-13, and then early in the fourth quarter we kicked a field goal that made it 28-19. So, we stayed competitive. They got a couple late touchdowns and kind of won it going away. And Michigan just, showed they had, the elite playmakers and they had the depth. They had a lot of guys that went in the NFL. They went on to the college football playoff, lost to TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, 51-45. Basically just got behind in that game and dug too deep of a hole. They were a big second half team last year. so you almost had to get a bigger lead. So that's one of the things I felt about the Big Ten championship game last year was, we were close, but we needed to have a lead, I felt like, and try to hold them off because they were just too good in the second half last year, especially the fourth quarter.
Well, we had a lot of, if I remember, I think it was at least 4 trips to the red zone that didn't result in any points.
Yeah, I kept kicking field.
Which
Yep.
I understand Brahms' mentality there. Like, hey, you're on the big stage. You're playing against Michigan. Like, you gotta put points up, and it just didn't work out. But more of a competitive game than what the score would indicate for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we pull within 19 to 28 and one play goes our way and we take something to the house, all of a sudden now we're talking about a 2.3 point game late in the fourth quarter. So the big storyline for them offensively last year was their run game. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, probably the best 1-2 punch at running back going into this year in the country, not just conference. Corum ran for 1,463 yards. He's projected to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, which is saying a lot for the running back position in the NFL right now. That's it's obviously very devalued. There's a lot of coverage on that. If you're watching the NFL and how those players kind of banded together, and they even had a conference about the franchise tag and how running backs are played and how they're devalued in the NFL. So for a guy to be projected as first-round pick, obviously shows how elite of a talent he is. But then coming off the bench or coming in to spell him is Donovan Edwards, who he added another 991 yards last year, averaged over 7 yards a carry. And they're a dual threat offense. JJ McCarthy came in, took over for Cade McNamara early in the season, and he's looking like that star quarterback that Harbaugh has been, trying to groom and trying to grow for their program. So, you stop the run game and you're still in the hole with their passing game. So you've definitely got to be sound across the board on defense to try to slow them down. The good news is, I believe Illinois played pretty well against them last year defensively. So, there is some hope that maybe, Coach Walters just figured them out a little bit on defense, and we can have a shot if Card can light up the scoreboard. So, in the Ohio podcast, they said Michigan's
Yeah.
O-line is no joke.
For anyone who's not watching, the Ohio podcast just posted a pretty funny comment. Michigan's O-line is no joke. They're nasty, like Hoosier Brew. So for
I
anyone
can
who
tell that,
doesn't
Derek.
know, Hoosier Brew is a beer. I think it was announced today that IU is now, it's brewed for IU football. They're going to be serving it at IU football games. Again, they just love to copy everything we do. We've had Boiler Gold and Boiler Black for 5 years now. This will be the fifth year, I think. I mean, as Dylan said, you have to drink something in order if you're going to go to an IU football game. But I will say, Boiler Gold and Boiler Black, while they're not fantastic, they did get people to go to the games.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I understand the reasoning for it. So then we have the Jim Harbaugh FU tour, that being the X factor. It's actually a really good point, especially with all the controversy surrounding him lately. I think it's, to call Blake Corum a good running back, just doesn't quite sell it enough, in my opinion, to look at some of his numbers from last season. 1,463 yards at 6 yards per carry. I mean, that's crazy with that kind of volume to have 6 yards per carry. 248 yards, 1 fumble. I mean, he takes care of the ball. 3.3 yards after contact. That's just unheard of. But I think the most impressive thing, 41% breakaway percentage. What that means is the percentage of runs which yielded a breakaway, which is a yard of 50 or a run of 15 or more yards. So 41% of his carries resulted in a 15 plus yard gain for someone who had 248 carries. Like, that's absolutely absurd. He's the number one rated quarterback on halfback on PFF last season, Pro Football Focus. He is a potentially generational talent, in my opinion. And like you said, Russ, he's projected first round pick in an era where running backs are, as you said, devalued. I think what we're seeing is a transition in the game where we're seeing a lot of teams going to two backs instead of one primary back, and maybe that's what's kind of lending itself to that a little bit. But it's scary to think about him coming back.
Yeah, and not to get too much into pro football talk, but a lot of that too is teams don't want to sink money into the running back position because you play 2, 3, 4 guys. So those, these elite running backs that want that big money, teams are going, hey, look at the last Super Bowl winners. Kansas City did not, Isaiah Pacheco was their leading rusher, right? Late round or undrafted rookie, I believe. Before that, the Bucks with Leonard Fournette, Rashad White. The Rams, Cam Akers was kind of highly heralded, but they had a kind of a who's who of running back crew that kind of got it done for them. So yeah, there's no elite running backs really when you win a championship in the NFL. So I think the biggest returners of these producers are their linebackers. A couple of their linebackers, Junior Colson and Michael Barrett, will anchor their defense. The only question mark might be their secondary, just because there's, they don't have a lot of returning production. There's kind of question marks on who's going to be filling out each position. They do have a pretty hard hitting safety, I believe. Can't remember his name now, but their defense, obviously TCU showed that their defensive scheme, at the very least, if you get a high-powered offense that's clicking on all cylinders, you can put up points and get competitive with them. So I don't give us a huge chance, but we'll know, kind of like the Nebraska game, we'll know at this point what we're working with on offense. And if we've got one of the top offenses in the Big Ten, I think it gives us a puncher's chance. If not, I mean, they're a really talented ball club. So.
Me, normally my Boilers by a billion, but Michigan's pretty good. So I don't know. That one, I can't for sure say Boilers by a billion there, but Boilers by a few. We'll do it that way. Maybe, hopefully.
Boilers to cover the spread. Got it.
There we go. I like that.
What do you think, Frank?
Boy, this one's really hard. So I will be going to the Big House for this one. I'll be excited to go to the Big House. I've heard, it's a monument to college football and it's a place you have to go. I've also heard that it's highly overrated. So I'll make that judgment call myself when I get to see it. But I think that, I think this one gets a little ugly in Michigan's favor, honestly.
Yeah, I can't remember how you say that. Mike Sanristel, that Ohio podcast. That's the defender I was thinking of. So,
yeah, enough Ohio State compliments, please. Jeez, God, enough praising Ohio State. All right, don't.
I think it's because we started talking about Michigan, and so maybe that stirred up the Ohio State crowd there.
Michigan with an M, Eric. Michigan.
So just because we're getting all the love from the Ohio podcast, I will say
I love those guys.
Purdue by 14. Purdue goes into the Big House and pulls off the upset.
There you go. Yeah. The revenge tour. That's the Harbaugh FU tour. We're saying FU to Harbaugh for knocking us out of the Big Ten championship game last year.
Tour.
So how do you all say that? I say tour. My wife says tour.
I kind of go back.
We argue about this.
I'm like a tour.
We discuss this.
I'm like kind of happy medium, like tour. I don't know. Tour. Us folks in Ohio State, we can't say nothing.
Tower.
There he is again. Us Ohio folk, we can't talk right. Y'all know that.
So November 4th, Michigan. Next week, November 11th, we return home after a couple games on the road to play the Minnesota Gophers, Golden Gophers, the PJ Fleck led boat rowers. It is going to be at noon. And just fair warning now for Purdue fans, it's on the Peacock Network. So don't freak out that morning of if you don't have the coverage. Find a friend that's got it, find a bar that's got it, or make sure you're set up with that, because that will be on the Peacock Network. Wonderfully.
Russ, do you know what the Peacock is? Do you know that's a streaming website?
You stumbled in your words there a little bit, and that made it sound questionable.
This is not beer, by the way. This is water. It's liquid death. No free ads. So I'm not drinking. I'm just stupid. But anyway.
Okay. Yes, I am aware that's NBC's streaming network platform deal that they got going on there.
Your wife showed you that for sure.
Unfortunately, Notre Dame kind of pushed the popularity of that and got a couple of games on there. So yeah, see, there you go. See, yeah.
Well, there goes our YouTube ad. Golly.
Read that comment, Dylan. I'll let you take over that one.
Boilers and Gophers on the cock, you say, is what the Ohio podcast is.
So that's the Hokies. That's the Virginia Tech mascot. That's the
No, that's
Yeah.
true. The
Yeah.
Hokies, South Carolina
Yeah.
Gamecocks.
I'll be
It's
honest,
like
it took me a second to piece what that meant. Yeah, Peacock. Yeah, Peacock. Yeah, Peacock Network. That must
Peacock Network.
be the nickname for it that I'm not
That's
aware
what the
of.
kids call it.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what? Yeah. So,
Eric, you son of
All
a
right.
gun.
So yeah, so Minnesota. It'll be the military appreciation game. Luckily, I don't have to worry about the Peacock Network because I'll be going to this game with my dad. So I don't have to worry about all that crap. So, but the Gophers finished 9-4 last year, 5-4 in the Big Ten, tied for second in the West, part of that three-way tie with Illinois and Iowa. Purdue finished out a hard-fought 20-10 victory, thanks in large part to Maccabees run heard round the world, or at least around the Purdue world. That 68-yard run that he just would not go down, was throwing
One more
dudes to the
yard.
ground.
Just one more
Um,
yard. That's all.
it set up a 2-yard touchdown on the very next play that he got to take in, which I was so happy because so often in football you see that guy that makes that big long 60, 70-yard run that gets you down to the doorstep, and then they insert another running back in there that just walks in and gets the touchdown. So I was very happy to see them get him the touchdown that he earned there. But that was kind of his breakout game. He'd contributed. He obviously had, I think it was 60 or 70 yards and a touchdown against Indiana State, but that was, a lot of guys were getting minutes that they wouldn't normally get, and getting snaps they wouldn't normally get. But yeah, Minnesota going into that game, it was more thought of as our running back room is going to be a two-headed monster with Dylan Downing and Maccabee kind of said, "Hey, this is my spot." So,
and
luckily, going into this year, Mohammed Ibrahim has finally graduated after a 15-year career at Minnesota. He is no
16
longer on the
years.
roster. They are returning a starting quarterback, Ethan Kaliakmanis. So don't say that too fast. Ethan
Nailed it. No, I
Kaliakmanis.
actually do think you nailed it. I
He's a
would have bet.
sophomore. He's a little unproven. He obviously had I think it was a 3-2 record as a starter. So he got the job done for them, but so they played Syracuse in their bowl game last year. They did beat Syracuse, but any guesses on how many passes he attempted in that game?
Frank, I'm going to hand this off to you, pal.
3.
See, he already knew where I'm going with it. Frank's too smart. He got too big of a brain. He already knows what direction. If you're asking a question, he knows that it's a weird answer. But
Hold on. Before you answer, I love this comment here. PJ Fleck looks like he tries to sell encyclopedias door to door. And he looks like someone who tries to do that in 2023 too, when no one sells encyclopedias door to door.
No,
That's for
he's
sure.
not
son,
selling
you look like you need a
encyclopedias.
Britannica in your building.
He's
Yeah.
selling those Fleck coins or Fleck bucks, whatever they are.
And we also have a commented guess, Russ, at 7. How many passes he attempted. So
So yeah, that's close. That's close. So it was nine
okay,
pass attempts in the entire game. Schrader, the Syracuse quarterback, not running back. Well, he is their kind of leading running back too this year, but he had 51 attempts in that game. So just to show you the disparity and the way that Minnesota likes to play the game, they definitely are all about running the rock, and trying to control the clock and control the game that way, as opposed to trying to light it up in the passing game. However, they do return as of now, I believe, healthy Chris Ottman-Bell, and one of the better tight ends in the conference and the country in Brevin Spanford. So I do see them trying to throw the ball a little bit more, even though Kaliakmanis only had one game over 150 yards total. So out of, I think, 6 games that he started, 5 or 6 games he started, he did not throw the ball a whole heck of a lot. Their starting running back is likely a Western Michigan transfer, Sean Tyler. He ran for over 1,000 yards the last couple of years, but as we know, transferring from one of those directional mission schools in the Big Ten does not always work out the best. So I don't know how much we need to worry about him. Any thoughts so far on this matchup? Or
well, I think when you look at Sean Tyler, I think you make a really good point. When you look at his numbers and how they compare across different levels of competition, let's say, on the season, he averaged 4.9 yards per carry. He had a respectable 1,022 yards. But against Pittsburgh, he had 1.4 yards per carry. Now, against Michigan State, he did average 5.2. He had 68 yards on 13 rushing attempts. So But when you look historically through his numbers, they're not great against Power Five competition. Let's say.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't have much on their defense either. Top returning producer from last year's defense is linebacker Cody Lindenberg. Had 71 tackles, but also on defense, their top contributor might be a Western Michigan transfer, Ryan Selig. He's recorded 136 tackles over the last 2 years, so he might be kind of a run stopper, do it all linebacker for them as well, trying to help them hold the middle. So
Yeah, and they have, it looks like they've got 7 guys that are ones or twos that are transfers on the defensive side. So we're bringing in a lot of transfers, like seemingly every team we talked about. But I want to backtrack for 1 second, just talk about that Maccabee run. You were just in such a groove there. I didn't want to stop what you were saying.
you're good. You're good.
Well, when we had Devin Maccabee's dad on the podcast, for anyone who hasn't listened, highly recommend going back. We're on Apple.
Shout out to Uncle Conrad.
Yeah,
Uncle Conrad and Uncle Craig, both of them.
Yeah,
we
so
get a tailgate this year, a time or two.
we're on
Yeah.
Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter Live, all these places. A great interview with him. We asked him about that run, and he said that run was so important because for the first time, it was like Devin was one of the guys, right? Like after that run, he was celebrating, guys were hyped, but it was like he now belongs was sort of his takeaway from that. And just to hear him talk about because we were talking about like, oh, that run was so crazy. Like I've watched it 15 times, still can't understand what he did, how he moved this way, that way, juked all these guys. Honestly, was worried he was going to fumble the ball because at the end he was carrying like 4 guys with him. But like in his eyes, that was Devin Maccabee's belonging. That was the moment at which he became one of the guys. So that was just a monumental play for the team, but also for him as a person. So I just wanted to share that little bit of insight about that run, as I feel like that's some interesting information there. We have a comment here that just came through. Am I the only one that feels like Purdue tries so hard to lose to Minnesota every year when we shouldn't? I would say outside of last year, yes. Outside of last, I mean, so wasn't Minnesota undefeated when we went into Minnesota last season?
I believe they were ranked. I don't know about undefeated. I know they were like 21st.
So I know that like there was all this hype about Minnesota and people were talking potential Big Ten champions and Big Ten West champions and whatnot, and no one really thought we were going to win the game, but we went in there and we handled them.
Yes, they were. They came in 4-0. Yep.
Yeah. So last year it sort of flipped that script in my opinion, but in previous years, absolutely, I would say that it does feel that way. Feels that way about Nebraska too, honestly. Like we
And
should.
Wisconsin, and I don't know about should beat Wisconsin, but yeah, it feels like we always try to find a way to not have a shot in those games.
Yeah, but that's I had to think about that one for a second, but yes, that does feel accurate. So Russ, how you feeling about this game in terms of win, loss, and margin of victory or loss?
Well, I feel a lot better about it being at home. I think that gives us, maybe even close to a touchdown edge. And I hate to keep giving this answer, but it is one of those things where, every team, look at the first, I think 8 games of our schedule. 6 of those 8 teams have a transfer quarterback that we've never even seen in that uniform. Including us, that's 7 out of 9 teams. So there's going to be so many variables that we're going to have to get 3 or 4 games into the season to see what everybody's actually working with. Because there are teams that you won't expect to hit the ground running and gel well, and they will. And there'll be teams that you'll go, yeah, well, we can see why that didn't work out because they had all these transfers and young guys. So, but this is, you talk about programs that are in similar positions as far as the program as a whole. This is a game that we should be favored in, and we should be able to edge them out at home. We see ourselves in the same class as Minnesota, if not a little bit better. Coming off a Big Ten championship game appearance with a lot of guys, we did graduate and transfer out a lot of guys from that team last year, but we also have a lot of returning contributors, and we have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in the transfer portal choosing Purdue. Like, we should be competitive and have the edge in this game. So,
Eric coming in with a question from the Ohio podcast. Do you think we can have a transfer portal podcasters?
Come on over,
Hello-
bud.
Yeah,
Water-
we'll take you, Eric. We'll
Yeah.
take you in the transfer portal. I'm not going there. There ain't no way in hell you're getting me to transfer to Ohio State podcast.
They're gonna bring up that you're already geographically close to them, so
It makes sense, sure, yeah, but no, I'm not doing it. I'd rather go to send me down to the MAC.
yeah, Miami. Go to the Red Hawks. Help
Some
them out.
action.
Ooh, yeah, the Red Hawks are close to it, like 20 minutes, half an hour from my house. Shoot, I'd rather go to
And
the MAC.
so question on the Purdue Minnesota matchup. I feel like this was a thing, definitely in the first couple of games after PJ Fleck was hired. But I wonder if it still exists in your all's eyes. Is there a personal element to playing against PJ Fleck? Because the word on the street was he had basically said he was going to come to Purdue and then saw Minnesota as a better opportunity that came across his lap on in the last second, and basically backed out of whatever verbal agreement he had and thought he was going to go to Minnesota. And I think the fans kind of took that personally, and so there was this desire to beat PJ Fleck to maybe show him that he made the wrong decision or whatnot. Does that still exist?
I don't think so. I mean, we're on to our next coach now already.
Mhm.
I think it's on to other things. I think that maybe there's just the fact that moving to these divisions, especially since it's been East-West divisions, it's just formed a bigger meaning to every game against our Western Conference foes or Western Division foes. So it makes Minnesota mean a little bit more. It makes Wisconsin mean a little bit more. It makes Nebraska mean a little bit more. So I think it's just that aspect, and there will be the added hype aspect and the coverage of PJ Fleck, and Minnesota's another one of those teams that's picked ahead of us this year, that's hyped up more than us. So there's going to be that chip on the shoulder for that. But as far as the coaching decision being an edge or being a chip on our shoulder, I don't think that exists anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just like having PJ Fleck lose. That's my favorite. See, PJ
Yeah.
Fleck is one of those coaches that I don't want him coaching my team, but I like having him in the conference because he's slightly entertaining. For all the wrong reasons, he's entertaining. But yeah, he's one of those guys. You don't want him as your head coach, but you like having him to watch on the sideline.
So anybody got any more on the football games to this point? So let's see. We're 10 games into the season now. What do you guys think record wise? What do you guys think we're sitting at, or what would you like us to sit at? What do y'all
I
think?
mean, if we got 6 wins, I'll be happy. If we can be bowl eligible, that would be fantastic. That's all I ask.
So Nick Burris says now Fleck's gone from an encyclopedia salesman to a snake oil salesman. He's an annoying little brother. Yeah,
He does,
well
yeah. As a little brother, I could see he does make the annoying little brother outfit. He does do that well.
wait, careful. If you say little brother, IU fans are going to get a little upset.
I what's his name from the LEO podcast said that today, and I was like, and I send the stat. If we're talking football, I sent him the history, and it's like Purdue.
The basketball history is pretty slanted towards Purdue too, but
They both are. But and then we got banners, whatever.
that's what their beer tastes like. Really, it's dusty old banners.
Dusty old, moldy, old asbestos-filled banners.
Yeah.
One of my favorite PJ Fleck stories is when we had Markel Jones on here. Again, if you haven't watched it, go back, check it out. He's been on twice. Fantastic guy to listen to. Talk about his time at Purdue. But he talked about being recruited by PJ Fleck. He was at Western Michigan or Eastern Michigan. I always get the two schools mixed up.
Western,
I shouldn't.
Broncos.
Yeah. But it said it's like he wanted to show you how much money he had in like every aspect. So it was just this, he had like the super expensive belt on, the super expensive watch, super expensive car, and that's just a quality that I just don't like in a person. So
it sounds like Coach Prime, who I don't mind Coach Prime, but like the way he's wearing those cowboy hats and the expensive shirts, and it's like, all right, man, let's tone it down a little bit.
Nick Burris, IU big baseball school. Who cares? I didn't know they played. Hey. Yeah. So I didn't even draw that connection that Fleck is from Western Michigan, and they've got that recruiting pipeline there for the transfer portal. The big running back transfer from Western Michigan, linebacker transfer from Western Michigan. Interesting.
Big Mac powerhouse.
So, Dylan, I don't know about you, but I did not buy the pass to see the Europe games for the basketball team.
No, I didn't.
But I know our buddy Frank did.
All the
Yes, I
lines,
did.
all
I
the
did.
lines on the court were giving me headaches.
Yeah, which yeah, if you guys want to watch it, let me know. I'll shoot you my login.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're gonna look.
so like before we start like addressing Purdue's performance in Europe, I think it's important to point out that we did not have Zach Edey, we did not have Ethan Morton playing with a different ball, which we saw last year actually really matters a whole lot. Shout out Cobra Stats on that pretty cool analysis he did on that. And I'm pretty sure we're dealing with a different rim height as well. I think the rim is a slightly different height than it is in the U.S. In European rules. Because I remember Painter saying at one point last time Purdue went to Europe that you can really see who can shoot and who just has muscle memory built in when you give them a different ball and they're shooting in a different height rim.
Ooh,
You can really see who is actually a good shooter and who's just developed muscle memory, and then you can address that. And that's one of the benefits he saw to playing in Europe. But kind of the big takeaways: Trey Kaufman-Renn looks elite. That being said, he missed a lot of easy shots. So he did score 72 points, yeah, and just across all 4 games, which is impressive. He scored 72 points on 57 shots, though. He missed a lot of easy shots at the rim, and I think I'm going to attribute that to playing with a different ball, playing on a different, different size rim, different height rim, whatnot. I'm not too concerned about that. Another guy that stood out to me was Brian Waddell. Not really sure what happened to him since we saw him last, but I want some of whatever he's consuming because he literally looks like he's put on about 30 pounds of muscle. He's quicker. He's faster. He's got more pop. I mean, he threw down some dunks with authority. He did dunk once last year against Duke. And to say it wasn't pretty is putting it nicely. I mean, it went up and he threw it down, but he dunked like I could on a good day, well, on a fully healthy ankle. Yeah, he just looks really, really good. He's moving up and down the floor quickly. He's playing really good defense. So, a lot of people are talking about what is the 3 position, what's the 2 position look like for us this season, and he's really a guy that's been kind of left out of the mix. And I think he may, earn his way into the mix there, definitely. Probably the biggest jump from last season I thought was that title was held by Braden. He only averaged 7.8 points per game, but 10.5 assists. Like that's, I mean, he will go down as a Purdue legend if he averages that on a season. Assist to turnover ratio of 6. So let's see what were the actual numbers here for Braden. Let's see, that's not all the. Here we go. This is everything.
So I just want to, while you pause real quick too,
Mhm.
he also had one game with 0 points. So to average
Mhm.
7.8 points and go one game scoreless, not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, so he had 42 assists to 7 turnovers. And it's not just the assists. I mean, so to throw that is not all assists are created equal. Is effectively what I'm getting at here. To throw the ball into Zach Edey and let him turn around and score when he's 1-on-1, like that almost shouldn't count as an assist. But to make crazy pocket passes through hard hedges to find wide open Trey Kaufman ran wide open Caleb Furr standing under the basket for a dunk like he was doing consistently, that's impressive. Like in my opinion, he wasn't making those passes as often last season, and his pick and roll reads seem to be on another level. Like so, Purdue's looking to score a lot more in transition. It seems like we're looking to try to get before the defense is set, get down the floor quickly, and I think we have the roster that to play that way a little bit more. But here's an interesting stat. Once I was able to find the box score, in Europe, Purdue averaged 76.2 possessions per game. Does anyone know? Um, does anyone know what Purdue averaged last season in terms of possessions per game? So in Europe, 76.2. What did we average last season?
all you, Russ.
I'm going to say less than 60.
64.2.
That was my guess too. Damn.
So and that's why that's why pace really matters in college basketball. So you can start to compare, well, how many points per game does this guy average on team A versus how many points per game does this guy average on team B? Well, team A and B, could be 10, 12 possessions per game difference in pace. So you can't really compare the points per game fairly, at
Well,
least.
but Edie only scored so many points because he plays so many minutes, and he's so tall.
He's just
Yeah.
tall. Look at these. Look at these
Well, and that's
jerks.
what, you know, everyone talked about.
Well, welcome to our world. Welcome to our world. How podcast commented, "You guys are speaking a foreign language. We don't know what this thing called basketball is that you're speaking of." Now,
what a
now I
jerk.
will give you that Frank's big brain definitely talks about some things that has us start to go cross-eyed. But yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about.
But another thing I saw from Purdue is that there seemed to be a higher. So Purdue has played some no middle defensive scheme in the last couple of years. Seemed to be happening at a higher frequency. So for anyone who doesn't know what no middle is, it's basically you're what it sounds like. You don't want to get the ball to the middle, so you're playing with your. Apparently, Russ found that funny. Hey,
No, you said for anybody that doesn't know what that is, Dylan's like,
oh, okay, yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, so, yeah,
You're speaking to
yeah.
me. That's when you say what it is, you're like, okay, let me know, because I have no idea.
But if you think about a team trying to set a side ball screen or a ball screen on the wing, let's say, you position yourself with your feet toward the sideline, and the ball handler's defender would not let the ball handler take that screen. It's a technique known as icing, whereas Painter calls it downing. So you can hear it. You can hear it a lot. You know, down, down, down. He's telling guys, "Hey, get in between." Get in between your man and the screener, and don't let them take that screen and force them to the baseline. That accomplishes a couple of things. One, it really takes away the action that the team's trying to execute. Two, it allows your guys on the opposite side to sag into the paint a little bit more and help early. Because if you think about the ball being pinned to one side, if you want to skip it over to an open shooter, that's a long pass. And then guys have enough time to close out at that point or try to intercept the pass. So it takes a lot of discipline. It takes really athletic players, and it takes really smart players. And I think that it's kind of prevailing as the best defensive scheme to play in college basketball right now. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of that.
That little bit you just pulled was incredible. I mean, that was great work. Coach Payne, if you're watching, which we know you are.
He's a mastermind. So
if you don't hire Frank in like the next year, what the hell are you doing? Get this guy on your staff.
Well,
he raises the whole pod's IQ by like 15 points.
But let's make it to where he coaches at Purdue, but also still stays on the podcast, because he kind of drives the ship a lot of the time. We can't afford to do that.
Yeah. So I did look up dimensions of the European game, the FIBA game a little bit. The rim does look like it's the same height.
Okay.
But, you know, if you think those lines were confusing, the dimensions of the court were actually different than what we play on here as well. So imagine having all those lines, and then where you're looking for those lines to be at, they aren't going to be there either. So that might be kind of what he's talking about a little bit, because like the 3-point line's a different area. The court dimension itself is a different dimension. I know the lane itself is different. So yeah, you can't just spot it behind the 3-point line and have muscle memory because you're a different distance in a different spot from the basket. So
Nick here is 110% correct.
Yeah, for anyone who's not watching, we have a comment. Dylan looks like he dominates pool basketball and beer.
See, is it pool? I thought it was pool basketball, like when you play basketball in a swimming pool.
Oh, that's what I was thinking too. I love that.
That I kill because I have the knees of an 80-year-old. We're talking torn ACL. We're talking all the. My knees are terrible. So when you put me in a pool and you give me a hoop and a ball, buddy, I'm LeBron James.
Like I said earlier today, Dylan, you're the youngest old guy I know, man.
I'm wise beyond my years, Russ. That's what that is. I give Russ a lot of shit for being old, even though he's not even the oldest on the podcast. But there's been a lot of times where I've done some old people shit, and Russ is like, hey, who's old now, bud?
Like on a daily basis, like
at
least once an hour. Yeah.
Hey, I think Damon was behind the tweet from the podcast account. I tweeted, I need to get my life together, and it was 101 texts and 24,000 emails or whatever. And he's like, those 100 texts are just us reminding Dylan when the podcast is. He's donkey. So, pull this comment up. This is it.
We need to make sure our next Airbnb for our next road trip for road game for the pod road trip. We need to get an Airbnb with a pool and a pool basketball goal, because we actually played. Well, when I was in high school, our soccer team of all the teams, we played a game called Jungle Ball, which was pool basketball with no rules other than get the ball through the hoop.
Oh, hell!
And if you got dunked under the water, you had to let go of the basketball. So it was some. I mean, you want to talk about some claw marks, some bruises, some dudes
Dude,
getting
count
held
me
up. Oh yeah,
in.
It was brutal, but I loved it. I was all there. I was
We
there
got a
for it.
comment here saying he's dunking on nephews and calling cherry picking.
I don't know who Nick
He's
is, but I
that guy.
like him. I
He's
like
that
him.
guy. Nick's a good guy. Good
I
guy.
like Nick a lot.
Well, a few other interesting stats. These aren't mine. Got these on Twitter from Cobra Stats. Again, great follow. If you're not following Cobra Stats, do it. Some fascinating things that he churns out. Um, Smith, Lawyer, Jones combined. So basically, our backcourt. 67 assists, 13 turnovers. That's good. Like those are numbers you definitely want to see from them. When you combine Colvin, Heidi, Waddell, they went a combined 15 for 25 from three, 60%. Really impressive there. TKR, Gillis, Berg, and First combined 66% on 2-point shots. Just interesting
There's
little
one more guy that
tidbits
you
there.
mentioned before we came on live too that I wanted to hear your thoughts on, and that's the transfer of the team this
Yeah,
year. Mitch Jones.
yeah. His I think he's going to add a lot more to the team than what people originally thought. So he is a menace on defense. Like he's that guy who's just getting up in your face, making life miserable for you. So that's kind of what he offers on the defensive end. He really has that like kind of pick your pocket, steal it when you're not paying attention ability. And he's fast, he's quick, he can get to the rim, and not only that, he can find the guys in transition to score quickly and easily. His shot is better than what his numbers would indicate from what we've seen so far. Let's see, what did he finish at? So he finished 2 for 13 from three, but a lot of his shots were at the rim. He was taking it, from the outside, driving in and scoring easily. So I think his athleticism, I think his defense, and I think his IQ and experience is really going to solidify a good like 15 to 18 minutes per game for him. He really impressed me. There wasn't really a single player who didn't impress me, to be honest. Like I don't know how you even go about deciding who starts or who plays in what scenario or whatnot. Again, this is a team that didn't have Ethan Morton, who was kind of the floor general, in my opinion, at least. So just the fact that we were able to go in and play these teams who aren't cupcakes, by the way. These are very talented, very skilled teams that we played. Maybe with the exception of one.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe with the exception of one for sure. But these are really good teams. I think it was extremely beneficial to see how the team looks without Zach Edey. So extremely pumped for the season. Really excited to see what's going to happen, especially when Zach Edey's on the bench. That's what I got on the main takeaways there.
Yeah, that third game was actually was Dylan's dream game because it really was pretty much Boilers by a billion. So
Yeah,
almost.
What was it, like 38-5 in the first quarter or something? And most of that was defense too. Like we were hitting shots, but we were playing really good defense. And that team just, I think I said it before we got on here. That team kind of looked like a YMCA pickup squad.
Yeah, it was like they played 2 games against competitive teams, and then they said, "Hey, where's the local YMCA? Get somebody set up the camera," and they went and played a competitive game.
Imagine that halftime talk they had. Like that coach was like, "Guys, we're there. We're right there with them." Like,
Yeah,
they thought they showed up for pool basketball and beer. That's what they.
Well, no, I was watching that game and I'm like, do they believe they can win? Like when they're down 60, do they believe they can actually win?
That guy must be a better cult leader than PJ Fleck. Whoever's coaching that team to keep them from showing up that second half. I mean, shoot, they must have a lot of Fleck coins or something.
There was a lack of, I'll say, pep in their step. They didn't play with a lot of energy. It was almost just like something you'd see at the YMCA. Honestly, is the best way to describe it. They weren't moving very quick. They weren't playing very hard. It was just like they learned to play basketball like 6 months ago. It just
They just found out what basketball was.
Very, very basic offense.
We're going to play this team called Purdue.
They played a lot of hockey and baseball, and they heard that Edey guy went from playing hockey and baseball to basketball, so they thought, if he can do it,
anybody can. We're just not 7 foot a million.
Well, you guys got anything else from the week or from anything we might have missed from those football matchups?
QB commit today.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, go ahead, Frank.
What's his name?
Sawyer.
Sawyer
We got this big commit. What the
Sawyer
fuck is
Anderson. Yeah.
Yep.
I knew his first name. Yeah. So we got
another Texas quarterback? Hell
yeah, another Texas quarterback. So we've got Hudson Card from Texas. I forget the name of the guy who's committed for next season. But then
Davila.
yeah,
Yeah,
Davia, I
somewhere.
think.
Davia.
Davia, I think. Yeah,
That was a
and
very
then
Midwest way to pronounce it. You talking about
Davila.
Davila?
Davila.
Davila.
So now Sawyer Anderson, 2025 recruit, has a stacked list of offers, like an absolutely stacked list of offers. Arkansas, Miami, Minnesota, Mississippi State, Missouri, NC State, North Carolina, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, SMU, TCU, Texas Tech.
I wonder
It
what
just
he didn't
goes
like
on.
about Fleck.
But
Yeah, it was nice little touch by Walters and Coach Harrell to have that little video with some Rush, Tom Sawyer playing.
and
Pretty cool.
them shooting the arrow and letting
Oh
it go.
yeah.
And I love the fact that Walters is like tweeting things like that, like when he knows a guy's going to commit and that he's he's putting out his own bat signals.
He's the best.
Something we definitely didn't see from any of our previous coaches.
Wins
for
or
sure.
losses,
Hey, but
like
that guy did a
those
topless
aside-
Top Gun video, so he's got some swagger himself.
Yeah. I don't. It's so hard to not laugh right now. I'm thinking about that. Whoever's idea that was, and like I've showed that video to like extreme diehard Louisville fans, and they're like, "What is this?" Like, no one enjoys that.
Damon put it was like a week after they released that video that they were looking for a new social media coordinator or something. So maybe that guy got fired.
Yeah. Whoever's idea it was to have a shirtless Braum throwing football.
I'm surprised he did it. That seems like the last thing he would have done.
Yeah.
Well, so the last announcement I want to make too is I want to bring up our Fantasy Football League. So if you guys enjoy listening to us talk some crap to each other and just kind of go back and forth a little bit, get in there and give us a message on X, or shoot one of us personally a message and we'll get you in there. We're still working on what the prize is going to be, whether it's going to be maybe a blitz board or NIL T-shirt from the NIL store, but we're going to get something in there. There's
Russ's autograph.
If nothing else, yeah, there you go. If nothing else, just bragging rights on being smarter than Big Brain Frank over there.
Which I don't think anybody is, but I mean, there's definitely people smarter than me, but Frank, no way.
Hey, don't you trash the Coonsville Pro Painters?
Hey man, the Pro Painters going to win the damn Boiler Bowl, whatever Boiler Express Bowl, whatever we're talking.
One thing we haven't mentioned tonight is our affiliation with Big Banter. Don't know how that slipped through the cracks. So
that's on the top of the screen.
It's been it's been a few months now of being a part of Big Banter Sports. Fantastic organization to be a part of.
Which the Ohio podcast you see in the comments, they're also a partner of ours with Big Banter. We're all under the Banter Brotherhood.
Yeah, so definitely as things get closer and the season starts to unfold, look for some collaborative podcasts with some of the other Big Ten podcasts. Really can't wait for those.
Wait till we get to IU.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we have some matchups week 1 that they're already working on getting those collaborations together. So
Damon and I already went on the Ohio podcast. Great time, had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We kept it off the rails like we normally do. I think we kind of surprised Derek with how like off topic we can get because Dave and I took care of that. We showed them how we do it here at Boiler Express. Real messed up.
And so what was the like kind of dynamic? Like was it hostile? Was it fun? What?
No. So at first being a guy that's historically talked terrible things about Ohio State, I thought they would have hated me, but no, I love those guys. They're the best. I can tell you, I know 2 great Ohio State guys, and it's those guys. They're the best. It's a lot of fun. They're really good at what they do. They have ads. I mean, they have commercials. I mean, they do it big over there. So no, they're great dudes. Love them. Real excited how the others are going to roll out too this football season.
At this point, Dylan like to enter his name in the podcast transfer portal.
No, I'm not going to Ohio State. I would go anywhere. I wouldn't go anywhere. I'm staying right here. But listen, the Ohio State.
Yeah, hey, there's a good one. Hey, Eric, if you don't want to do the transfer portal for the podcast, at least get in the league with us and show us what's up.
Eric, what do you if you're still? I'm going to text DM him and tell him to get on the fantasy football. What are we doing?
There you go. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I know we're hour and 13, hour and 14 minutes. So
if you've made it to the end of the podcast, use the hashtag Russ is old, and I'll Venmo you, I don't know, $5.
5 big ones.
Oh, Nick said he's in the fantasy league. Got to get him in.
Hey, there you go. All right. You all have a good night. Appreciate y'all joining us.
Spoiler up, hammer down.